Major funding for NJ Spotlight News is provided in part by NJM Insurance Group, serving the insurance needs of residents and businesses for more than 100 years. From NJ PBS Studios, this is NJ Spotlight News with Brianna Venozzi.
Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Joanna Gaggis. We're bringing you a special NJ Spotlight News edition of Reporters Roundtable, where I'll have a roundup of the top political stories of the week with the help of a panel of local journalists. Reporters Roundtable starts right now. Election security issues continue to drive the news cycle here in New Jersey as questions remain over how it was that 6,600 non-citizens were registered to vote in New Jersey, with 400 of them actually voting in elections. Hi, everyone. I'm Joanna Gaggis. This is Reporters Roundtable. We've got a panel of journalists here with us to help break down all that's happened in the last week of New Jersey news. Let's meet our panelists. We have with us today Lilo Stainton, senior reporter for New Jersey Monitor. We've got Brent Johnson, politics reporter for NJ.com and NJ Advanced Media, coming to us from the State House, and Ben Hulak, Washington, D.C. correspondent with NJ Spotlight News. Good to have all of you. Well, Governor Sherrill has hired an outside firm to investigate the Motor Vehicle Commission error that allowed non-citizens to register to vote. So, Brent, I want to start with you. What do you know about that investigation and how her administration has responded this week?
Yeah, the firm is what she says. She highlights that it's a bipartisan firm. One of the partners is Jeff Chiesa, the former state attorney general under Republican Governor Chris Christie. And she says that, you're going to get a bipartisan investigation. Christie himself said the same this week, that no stone will be unturned. Republicans in the state legislature are still calling for a separate bipartisan legislative panel to hold hearings, maybe with subpoena power. Sherrill is saying that that's not necessary, and the lawmakers, the Democrats who lead the legislature, are saying, we have to wait and see what this other investigation brings forth. But I've heard Democrats and Republicans praise Sherrill for the way she's handled this so far, that it wasn't her mistake, but she's owning up to it. Though I also hear that she owns it now, that now she is the face of this, and it's a question now of how this all unfolds and how this probably does have legs, and this is not the last we're hearing of it.
Yeah, and some questions about, she said she started her administration's immediately scrubbing the voter rolls of those who shouldn't be on. A portion they're removing immediately, and then the others, tell us what's happening there, Brent.
Yeah, she said that 4,500 are being removed because it was because of this error that she says happens at the MVC, and that about 2,100 other are being sent to county officials to make sure that some of these non-citizens might have been citizens after all. So they're going to look into that. At the same time, the Department of Justice at the federal level and the Trump administration had been wanting her to release the names and data of all these non-citizens who are registered. She told them no, that there's no legal basis for this. And so that's a whole other fight that's opened up. So many layers to this.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to explain in a short story.
I want to bring Ben in there because I know he's following this from Washington. Ben, what are you hearing from the president this week? Obviously, this drew a lot of attention immediately from Republicans on Capitol Hill and in the White House. What are you hearing from the president? What's his plan here?
Things have died down to a certain extent federally on this issue, but basically the Senate is trying to get out of town and confirm some nominations, confirm the acting attorney general. That was the big scuttlebutt this week. Last week, though, you're right, this was a massive story, and Republicans pounced all over it. I was sitting in the press gallery, actually, in the House, as the chamber was debating a voter restriction bill that Republicans want passed before the midterms that would make it more difficult to register to vote. And seemingly every Republican speaker who came to the dais brought up the recent disclosure from Governor Sherrill that there had been a voter registration error, that non-citizens had been registered. And this is just an absolute field day that comes at an ideal time politically for Republicans to push this in the fall. But I do think this will die out a little bit. Now Congress is out on recess and the chambers will come back after Labor Day, and slap a few pieces of must-pass legislation together and then be out campaigning again. So it is sort of fizzled.
Really quickly I just want to pick up on the president, because we have heard him talk about, wanting to and threatening to deport any of those 400 people who voted. He's been demanding that the governor release those names. Does he have any legal authority to require that at this point?
He certainly, the deportation process is extremely arduous and lengthy. So effectively, no, he doesn't have that authority. And this is, I would also point out that the DOJ, as Brent pointed out, is investigating this New Jersey error issue, but the timing is not really all that helpful for Republicans to get anything done before the midterms, which occur in November. And the DOJ has sued more than 30 states for their voter rolls and has been rejected in the vast majority of those cases. They are not winning these challenges. They've appealed to some extent to circuit courts those cases, but they're not, this is not effective legally for them.
Yeah, that case was thrown out in New Jersey by Judge Karashi. Let's switch gears for a minute. We're going to come back to this issue, but I want to bring in Lilo here because there's a whole lot going on in healthcare in New Jersey right now. One of the major focuses these days are the changes coming to Medicaid. Lilo, what can you tell us about those who are on Medicaid? What types of changes are coming that they should be expecting?
Right. So the biggest changes, if you're a legal immigrant, there may be changes for you. That comes in October. That's one deadline that everybody's looking forward to, but anticipating, working towards. The other real big news point is these work rules. The federal government, because of changes in the bill that they passed and Trump signed last summer, they instituted work rules in the SNAP and the food stamp program. A similar sort of work rules are going to take effect starting January 1st for about 500,000, give or take, people in New Jersey that received their Medicaid insurance after the Affordable Care Act was passed and it was expanded. So for them, they're going to have to many of them already work and care for loved ones and are in school. Now they're going to have to prove it to the federal government. And that is a lot of paperwork. The state is preparing to deal with that paperwork. It's, advocacy groups are working hard to make sure people know about it, but there's still, everybody says what they expect to happen is that some people will miss the deadlines, not get their paperwork in, and whether they deserve or whether they're eligible for the program or not will be cut from Medicaid. And the estimates are, 350,000 in New Jersey could lose Medicaid over the next few years because of basically new paperwork restrictions.
So that's the paperwork restrictions numbers. I wonder if there's a number or a projection as to how many will lose it because of the changes to the work requirements.
Well, that is sort of the paperwork. The work requirements are the paperwork. There are other paperwork requirements that also impact that group. I think when you put the two numbers together, it comes out to about 350,000. Some of it is just because they're going to have to apply more, they're going to have to fill out paperwork to qualify for the program more regularly, twice a year instead of once a year, I believe. And that's going to apply to everybody in that group of about 500,000, and including people who are going to be exempt from the work rules, which have their own new paperwork requirements.
Right.
And that exemption is really the heart of the debate right now, because people there is a medical frailty exemption, and the federal government has defined it in a way so that you can be disabled, you can have a chronic illness, a number of things, but you have to prove that again, paperwork, and B, prove that it actually impairs your ability to work. So you can't just be disabled. You have to show the government that you are disabled and that because of that disability, you are unable to work 20 or more hours a week. And so there's just a lot of changes coming for many, many people. This is a program that covers almost 2 million people in New Jersey. Most of them are essentially protected from these changes, but there's going to be huge confusion. Everybody agrees, and people are going to lose coverage.
And of course, rolling that out and getting clarity on who's responsible for what type of new documentation.
Yep.
I know that is the hard part. Brent,
Yep.
I spoke with U.S. Senator Andy Kim earlier this week about a program that he's rolled out called MediKids. What can you tell us about this program?
Yeah, it's a plan that he's rolled out that said it would enroll every child born in America into Medicaid for kids, and that it would give them coverage free of charge until they're 26 if they choose to keep it. It probably won't get any traction in a Republican-controlled Congress, but the thought is that maybe if Democrats retake control, he could push it. But he says that he got into politics because of health care, because his son was sick, and that he believes that this is something that would give parents peace of mind and should be a right for all the children born in America.
Yeah, I asked him a question about it not having a citizenship requirement and if it was essentially dead on arrival because of that, perhaps dead on arrival even without that. But he said that he feels that, it's not the child's fault if the parent brings them into the country. Do you see any political traction with this plan, given the fact that there's no citizenship requirement?
Yeah, I think it will be difficult, especially if Republicans continue to have control of Congress after the midterms. But, we're still waiting to see what happens with those midterms, so things could change. But it's a program I know he thinks it would get bipartisan support because who doesn't want to see kids get health treatment? So I guess we'll see.
Ben, would you agree with Brent that who wouldn't want to see kids get health coverage? Do you see this Congress as being open to a new type of healthcare plan?
If I could swear on this program, I would. No, this is not going to go anywhere. I was sitting with Andy Kim as he rolled this out a few weeks ago in his office down here. And I think part of why he's doing this, yes, which was what Brent hit on, healthcare is this through line for him politically. It's why he ran in 2018. That is all true and salient. The other thing, though, he told a bunch of reporters was when he goes to town halls and hears people say, yes, we know you're against Trump, but what else? What is your plan? What is the Democratic counterpoint to what Republicans are doing? This is something he pointed to. We have to be ambitious as a party. We have to think ahead. He's a bit of a hockey fan, I know, or at least he's used those analogies with me. He talks about skating to where the puck will be. That is sort of his mindset. He's a savvy politician. He knows this doesn't have legs politically right now, but his point is we need to think ahead. And I would also sort of tack on that he has, his father's been recently diagnosed with dementia. So he's sort of thinking about this as a bookend issue. What are we doing as a nation for our children, and what are we doing for our seniors and elders?
Lilo,
it's very personal.
Lilo, anything to add here as our healthcare expert?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I agree that theoretically it's a bipartisan issue in that healthy kids mean healthy adults, healthy, kids mean healthy workforce. It means less costs. Kids who have insurance tend to go to the doctor more. It keeps down costs, all that. And that aside, I would also point to what Senator Joe Vitale did in New Jersey, like eons ago, not eons, but decades ago, when, he started with kid care, and New Jersey was ahead of the curve. We implemented a program here that expanded Medicaid to working poor families, so they could get their kids covered. That grew. There was a federal program, CHIP, that then became, I believe it was under Clinton, don't quote me, but it was a toehold. We build off these things. Then there was family care. We expanded Medicaid more to let in more poor adults and working poor adults. And then, it happened on the federal level under Obama, the Affordable Care Act. So I think, whether Kim is thinking this way or not, there is a history of, you get a toehold. You start with kids, people agree kids are, it's more politically palatable, whatever it is. It also makes economic and healthcare sense. And maybe you build towards something. Nobody wants to talk about universal healthcare in this age and political climate. And I'm not suggesting that's what Kim is thinking. I have no idea. I've haven't talked to the man, but these things change over time. They build. There's momentum.
And to the idea that you skate to where the puck is, to use the analogy that Ben gave us, that he likes to say, perhaps he's looking ahead to a midterm where there could be a blue wave, and maybe he sees introducing something now, and perhaps he gets the support down the road. Anyone have any thoughts there?
I think that's right. But of course, keep in mind, if President Trump is in the White House, he's not going to sign a bill that would achieve this. Kim is one of the youngest, he's the second youngest senator in the U.S. Senate. And when he was sworn in, I asked him that night, what committees did he want? And his answer was national security committees. He did not get those committees, but he got health. And health has, I would say, along with immigration, become one of the biggest topics of this second Trump era. And he has sort of thrown himself into this topic on vaccines, ACA, tax credit continuation, and now Medicaid. So he is clearly establishing himself as a policy leader in this vein.
Lilo, I want to bring you in because there's some initiatives in New Jersey that you've recently written about in healthcare that have uncertain futures because of a lack of state funding. We know that this was a very tight budget for the governor. You wrote about crisis response centers as part of that group. Can you explain? This is part of 988.
Sure. Yeah. A couple of years ago, the state and the nation put in a national 3-digit hotline it was essentially a suicide crisis hotline. It's for all mental health and addiction crises. You can call, it's 988. It's open to people in crisis and families. So New Jersey put that in place, and that includes a whole call center system that links to local groups where counselors are available 24/7. It also put in place a mobile response system. So if you're a caller on the line and you say, I really need help now, and it's the middle of the night, they can go to your house in all counties and help you. And that's been used more than 1,000 times. The third part of this system, and it's been in 3 parts are in place in many states, but not yet in New Jersey, are these drop-in centers where someone who's spiraling can go and stay for up to 24 hours. They can get counseling, they can get medication. It is more home-like than an emergency room, because if anyone who's had, a family member in crisis or themselves knows, if you go to the emergency room, it's really chaotic, and it's not. It may be the best option, but it's not a great option always. So these were on.
And there's a plan. There's a plan for 5 of these locations in the state. Yes,
there's a plan for 5. The state 2 are basically ready to go, and the state doesn't have the money. And the state even did a ribbon cutting on one on March 31st. I mean, it's a beautiful site. They've got everything ready in Newark. It's on and when you talk to clinicians, everybody says this is exactly what we need. Everybody seems to agree on that. I saw doctors in the back of the room just shaking their heads. Yes, I can't wait to see this. Police want to see it. They can bring people there when they're in crisis. Everybody agrees it's a great idea. But the state needs basically $30 million to get it going. And for some reason, it wasn't in the budget. There's some debate about why not. Senator Vitale is now sponsored a bill to get, I think, $35 million for the first year just to get it off the ground. But his point is this needs to be in the budget. This is part of the mental health system. That other states have built, and they're talking about ways to fund it. But we're at an impasse, and people are without this option.
One of many, many cuts that we know the governor made to programs, many nonprofits.
Well, to be fair, that wasn't quite a
research
cut, but it was a non-funding.
Non-funding, yes.
Yeah, I mean, to be sort of fair.
Yes.
But there wasn't money in the budget. Bottom line is the same.
It's a great nuance. Brent, I want to come back to the voter roll issue because there was a bipartisan bill that we saw proposed by Democratic Senator Beach and then Republican Senator Kristen Corrado. I spoke to her earlier this week. They want to change the way that MVC registers people. Can you explain?
Yeah, I mean, at the crux of this is a law that Governor Murphy signed in 2018 that automatically gives people the option to automatically register to vote when you apply for a driver's license in New Jersey. And then where some of the issue that Republicans say come in, a year later, he signed a law that allowed undocumented immigrants to get driver's license. So this has renewed a debate that happened 6-7 years ago about how those two things shouldn't go hand in hand. Republicans made warnings for years about this, and now they're saying that they're being proved correct. So you're going to hear more talk about whether these laws need to be tweaked or whether there need to be a new system put in place or repealed or revamped. Cheryl was asked about this the other day, about whether she thinks automatic registration should be stopped. She said she doesn't believe that it should be unless something else comes out. But the legislature could choose to pass a law if they want to. That's the question. Will the Democratic-controlled legislature pass a law? So this is one of the many questions that is going to continue to linger on this thing, that even if it's died down to some extent, I think you will hear more discussion as we go forward on this topic.
Yeah, Republicans say this is a simple fix. If you can't move on any further once you say you're a non-citizen, that should be a simple change. They say they've been calling for this for a while because they've heard many people self-report who perhaps are trying to become naturalized citizens and are concerned that they were automatically registered to vote, and that could hurt them in the process. Ben, I actually, when I spoke to Senator Kim earlier this week, I asked him, one, if he thought this would push, Republican legislators who have been opposed to the Save America Act towards it, and two, if he thinks any change should happen when people go to vote, if there should be any proof of ID. What have you heard from him? And then I'll share what he's said to me.
I haven't actually talked to him on this issue in a while. The prospect of this, the political name is the Save America Act, of this Republican bill becoming law, it's just not going to happen, at least in this Congress. John Thune, the majority leader, a Republican from South Carolina, knows that to pass this, they would have to change the filibuster. And the filibuster requires 60 votes on almost all legislation to advance. So that has been the bulwark against this bill, against many things the House has sent over this Congress. And to Thune's point, he says if we change the filibuster, then when a Democratic Senate and Congress is in charge, when the Democrats have a trifecta in Washington, they will make D.C. a state, they will make Puerto Rico a state, and they will just run amok, sort of paraphrasing, of course. But this it's not going to happen, simply put.
Yeah. The senator did say to me that he thought there could be some proof of identification. He didn't want it to be burdensome. So he said maybe it's a proof of address or it's some type of ID without making it birth certificate, which the Save America Act would require, or even a driver's license, which he says could be onerous for some. But do you see, Ben, any type of bipartisan legislation coming out of this that would require some proof of identification?
Not out of Washington. No. I keep giving
Brent,
you the knee-jerk
yeah.
reaction. It's just true.
Well, I want to give that question to Brent. Do you see anything coming out of New Jersey? Sorry, Ben, we'll come back to you. Let me just get Brent in on this. Do you see New Jersey passing anything like this?
I would have said no until a few days ago when Cheryl was asked whether she supports voter ID, and she opened the door to it and said she supports some form of voter ID. She does not support the Save America Act. That's where she said that's too restrictive, and she thinks it's a voter suppression bill. But she kind of opened the door to it. So now I wonder if you still need the Democratic legislature to pass it. And I know progressives aren't big on the idea, and we have more progressives in the legislature now than we used to. But it looks like there's a little more of a chance now. Again, I always say never count anything out in Trenton. It's a place where all kinds of things happen.
Ben, go ahead. You can finish that thought.
I was just going to say, really to sort of augment what Brent said, the states carry out elections, and the feds don't have a massive role. The Trump administration is trying to insert itself more into state and local elections, but it's a very fragmented system we operate under.
Yeah. Lilo, quickly, I know we've had some extreme weather this summer and it's had an impact on people's health. I want to get your sense on how the Sherrill administration has handled extreme weather. She got high marks for her handling of early winter storms in her tenure as governor. How do you see it when it comes to this extreme heat and crazy summer weather?
Yeah, well, I was, of course, off the week after the extreme weather, so I missed the political storm that followed. But yeah, she got, so first of all, I think let's start with the numbers. 29 people died over the 4th of July holiday weekend, 29, which is a very, very high number for New Jersey. I don't remember how the exact numbers for past years at this point, but it was significantly higher than in past years. I mean, then
just a few seconds left, Lilo. Yeah, just a couple seconds left.
She got mixed reviews for this. A lot of it is left to local responders. There's a lot of questions everywhere about, we protect people from the cold? Are we doing enough to warn them about the heat, which is actually in many ways more dangerous? So yeah, there's plenty of room for improvement here.
And also brings in the issue of homelessness in New Jersey, which the governor's office did address this week, but we'll have to get to that next time. Lilo, Brent, Ben, thank you all for a great conversation. You can follow me on Instagram at Joanna Gagis NJ, and go ahead and scan that QR code right there on your screen to see more episodes of Roundtable. That's going to do it for us. I'm Joanna Gagis for the entire team here at NJ Spotlight News. Thanks for being with us. Have a great weekend.
RWJ Barnabas Health. Learn more at rwjbh.org.
NJM Insurance Group has been part of New Jersey for over a century. We support our communities through NJM's corporate giving program, supporting arts and culture-related and nonprofit organizations that serve to improve the lives of children, rebuild communities, and help to create a new generation of safe drivers. We're proud to be part of New Jersey. NJM, we've got New Jersey covered.